no talk. I hope you've all been doing well. I hope your winter's been good. It's been insanely cold here and very snowy as well. I actually can't believe that I went out in that snow this morning, but I also can't believe it because I ran out of oat milk, so I couldn't have coffee in my house. I had to leave to get it. I've also been in my house for so long. I needed to get outside and be around other people. Even though I haven't made any videos recently, I have been reading a decent amount. I just haven't talked about them because I haven't had too much to say about them. I think I mentioned in my last video that I'm hoping to move this year. And to kind of prepare for that, I have been reading a lot of books on my physical TBR and like specifically picking ones where I think I won't want to keep the book once I finish reading it so that I can get rid of it before I move and I don't have to take it with me. So it does mean I'm reading a lot of books that have been on my physical TBR for like a really long time, like maybe 2 years. So they're kind of these books where like at one point I thought I would love it, but it's been kind of a while, so I lost a little bit of interest in them. The majority of them I've liked reading, and I am glad that I read it. A lot of them were like, I think just like a good classic or like modern classic, so it feels just like opening up perspective and being more well-read in general, just being more like well-rounded in reading. But they're not really ones that I'm like, oh my god, I really want to get on camera and gush about these books. However, there's definitely a few exceptions. There's a few that I've read that I've really, really loved. The one that I'm kind of thinking about today, though, is Edith Wharton. I read The House of Mirth in January, and I literally loved it. I loved it so much. I thought it was amazing. Yeah, I just became obsessed with it and obsessed with Edith Wharton's writing. Edith Wharton wrote in like the early 1900s, so this book takes place in like 1920s maybe, and it follows our main character Lily Bart, who is kind of among the new rich in New York City, except she's no longer rich. She's kind of been skating by on her friends' goodwill and them supporting her a little bit. But everybody knows that she's kind of on the hunt for a husband, so she can marry and live her dreams of being very wealthy and very carefree wealthy. You see her trying to make marriages, trying to make matches. You kind of see her as she is a part of these social groups, but she's not, because everybody is aware that she can't pay her way and that she needs to marry in order to really be a part of this society. And so you see her longing for that society and just like longing to be free, and in her mind, being rich is being free. I don't want to say more, and honestly, maybe don't read the blurb, because I feel like the blurb maybe gets into spoiler territory. If you're very particular about spoilers, I would maybe not read the blurb. Firstly, I just loved Edith Wharton's writing. She is tremendously funny and very witty and sharp. Her commentary on society is like scathing and pointed, but also in such a comedic way. Very dark humor. She has these very intelligent and such like clear-sighted comments about gender and class and women's place in society, the limitations of them, and like the hypocrisy against women by society. I found that Lily herself was such an interesting character to follow. She is getting older. She's like 29, which like back then and being single was definitely on the older side. But she's beautiful. Like everything about her is grace. She has that just like essence in her that makes her just like stunning. She's very spoiled. But Wharton really develops this sympathy for her, and you understand and really feel for her as she's struggling to fit in with this group of people. It's interesting because like there's a lot of times where I had to catch myself and be like, I don't know if I should feel as bad as I do for Lily. Like, she doesn't have money and she needs to work. Like, boo-hoo, I need to work too. Like, that's not the end of the world, but like, to Lily it is, because she's so enraptured with the idea of wealth. You really feel her like agony as she feels like it's slipping away. So this weekend I'm working on annotating it. My method for annotation is, as I'm reading, I will underline whatever speaks to me. I underline as much as I want to, and I kind of try to over underline things, but really just any line or scene that jumps out to me, anything I think is important down the line. And then once I finish the book, I then go back and I go through and look at the things that I've underlined, and I highlight them, highlight anything specifically that jumps out at me again. And then I set up tabs. I usually do about 5 per book. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. It kind of just depends on what it calls to me in the book. I usually always have something that's like favorite lines or favorite scenes. And then for House of Mirth, I have womanhood, love and friendship, wealth and happiness, and beauty. And so I've started kind of going through a bit. And I'd like to finish this weekend. It's definitely been a few weeks since I read this book, which I usually don't let that much time pass in between reading, but it's just been like that. Oops. So even though I've been like trying to get books off of my physical TBR and like basically like get them out of my house, I did decide to pick up Frome today. It was just staring at me on my shelf, and I really wanted to read it. It's so short, so I feel like it's not that bad. But I am about 15 pages in, and I really, really like it. Like, I'm really sucked into this book. It's about a man named Ethan Frome. He is a farmer in a remote town in Massachusetts. He's quite poor. He lives with his overzealous and like annoying wife, and his wife has her cousin come and stay with them for a bit, and he becomes like obsessed with her cousin. It is reminding me of Stoner a little bit. Ethan Frome and Stoner as a character seem to have kind of a similar life. They're both quite reserved, and they both have like an interest in understanding the world. The writing kind of reminds me of Stoner. There's a lot of really beautiful descriptions of nature and scenes, and just the atmosphere is very present in this book. You feel like you're in winter in Massachusetts reading it, which just really parallels to the way that Stoner is written. The other book that this reminds me of is Wuthering Heights, especially just like the way that it starts, like the way that the story is structured, because you start with a man, I don't remember his name. You don't start with Ethan Frome, you start with a man who's come to the town to do some sort of business, and he is interested in Ethan Frome. It just reminds me a lot of Wuthering Heights in the way that starts with Mr. Lockwood, and he's being told the story of Heathcliff and Cathy as he's staying like on the moors and doing work there. And he's like intrigued by Heathcliff as a character. And like they're both about like obsession, kind of. So, I don't know, that's just the vibe that I got from the first 15 pages. But as you can see, Edith Wharton has me around her little finger. I think I'm gonna try and read and probably annotate this book this weekend as well. It is the next day. I have a very minor update. I have gotten about a third of the way through annotating The House of Mirth, and I'm really loving diving back into it. It does make me want to reread it, though I do not have the time for that. This morning I went to the exact same coffee shop that I went to yesterday, even though I didn't record today, and I read a little bit more of Ethan Frome. And I wanted to share a passage which I thought was particularly well written and just kind of is a good example of why I'm in love with Wharton's writing. She just creates these like beautiful and very vivid imagery that really encapsulates certain feelings, like deep feelings. And she does this also with like the atmosphere and the like landscape, which is a pretty big part of this book. So the scene is at Ethan Frome's house. They turn in at the gate and passed under the shaded knoll, where enclosed in a low fence, the Frome gravestones slanted at crazy angles through the snow. Ethan looked at them curiously. For years, that quiet company had mocked his restlessness, his desire for change and freedom. "We never got away. How should you?" seemed to be written on every headstone. And whenever he went in or out of this gate, he thought with a shiver, "I shall just go on living here till I join them." But now all desire for change had vanished, and the sight of the little enclosure gave him a warm sense of continuance and stability. When I got breakfast this morning, I brought home this ube cinnamon roll. It's huge, so I cut a piece of it to eat now. So I shall do that and then probably read a little bit more from Ethan Frome. I kind of want to spend today mostly reading, and cooking dinner are the only other things that I want to get done. So I finished annotating The House of Mirth. Yeah, just really solidified how much I enjoyed this book and how well I think it was written. If you are the kind of person who loves like character studies and loves reflecting on why characters do certain things, what their motivations are, what are their goals in life, is it happiness, is it wealth, is it beauty, is it love, is it status, and then just kind of analyzing where that drive comes from, what they're sacrificing for it. It's all just very interesting the way each of the characters are interconnected and how their desires play into each other's desires. Highly recommend if you want to dive deep into other people's lives. Also finished Ethan Frome and I annotated it as well. I focused on desire, isolation, atmosphere, and my favorite lines / scenes. I really enjoyed this book. I thought the atmosphere was very immersive. I didn't think it was boring. I know a lot of people, their complaints about it is that it's just a little boring, but I didn't feel that way personally. I was reading reviews on this and I can understand some people's criticisms about it, particularly about maybe the ending. The ending didn't ruin the beginning for me. While I thought maybe the ending was a little trite, I still enjoyed it for the way that it fit into this book and just kind of the general feelings that this book was trying to create. If you want just like a short, atmospheric, isolated, sad book filled with desire and longing, you should read this book. In terms of my next Edith Wharton, I'm kind of debating if I want to focus on her through the rest of the year and try and read a lot of her books, or if I should kind of pace myself slowly. But there's of course The Age of Innocence, which is her most popular book. I think she won the Pulitzer for this book. And I think it's very similar to The House of Mirth in that like it's about the wealthy upper class of New York City and their kind of troubles. I definitely want to read that one. And there's a few more I know that she has that I don't really know too much about. There's Summer, which the cover of Summer, like every cover that I've seen is just like perfect. I love them all. So I don't know which edition I want to get. And I have no idea what it's about either. There's also The Sun at the Front, which is, of course, a war novel. I believe it's World War I. I was reading about Wharton's life, and so I know that she was opposed to the war and that at one point she went to Europe during the war to help people and to try and advocate for ending it. I'm not usually a fan of war novels, but I'm interested on her perspective, especially since she was very close to the war itself, actually. She has a couple that are published by MYRB. One of them is Ghosts, which is like a short story collection about ghosts, which sounds interesting, and I've heard good things about. And then the other one is her writings on New York. I think it's just like a collection of different writings and stories that she wrote about New York. Definitely interested in this one. I'm from New York, so things about New York kind of speak to me and I'm interested in reading about them and the city, so I'm not sure which one I want to pick up next. Probably The Age of Innocence, but I don't know if I should read all of her best hits in a row, so we'll see. If you've read any of them, please let me know if you recommend one over the other. I think that's everything for now. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.